One of the things that we do in relationship with anything really is to pay attention. So we bring our attention to what it is that we're in relationship with. So when we're working with our relationship with our physical body, we bring our attention to it. We notice how we're sitting or lying down. We also notice the parts of our body that are contracted or we're holding ourselves stiffly. So we really bring ourselves in. And as we do that, we get to know ourselves in such a deep, authentic way. And we get to have more patience as well. So some days we tune in and our body is quite sore or painful, or we're restless. Other times we're very calm and settled in our body. We begin to really see and track what affects our physical body. And it makes sense. If we're really worried about something, we're going to have a lot of thoughts in the mind. Our nervous system is probably going to be hypervigilant. We're going to be trying to work something out in our mind as we're doing our relaxation. Sometimes we're able to bring ourselves to a state of being settled and regulated in our nervous system. And then that leads to a state of relaxing the body. The breath gets bigger and smoother, more ease in the breath. So we're all familiar with this process of connecting with ourselves, the relationship of goodwill and generosity with our body. I'm saying these words that kind of talk about a split between me and my body. So that's not exactly accurate. So it's helpful to talk about it as a relationship. And partly what we're talking about is connection or disconnection. So if you were to say, I feel really connected in and with my body, how true would that feel right now? I know my body. I'm very familiar with my body. I know the sensations. I know that when I tune in, it's almost always the same part of my body that's tight. For some, it's the clenching of the jaw. Others, it's the shoulders up around the ears or a tightness in the gut. As we pay attention, we get to know ourselves very well. This relationship of connection is quite different from what we grew up with, from what we had in our earlier life as an adult as well. As events unfold in our childhood, especially that are scary, or where we feel like we're on our own, we're left out, we're excluded, we don't feel loved and connected and included in a family of protection, then we start to disconnect from ourselves as a way to cope with that. So those are very difficult experiences, and that's the groundwork for this disconnection. So just notice for a moment how much more connected you are now with your body than you were before, wherever that before is. And let your whole body be in your attention. Really pay attention what's happening in your body right now. Take a few breaths. And we can have a relationship with ourselves at our younger ages as well. So if something got stirred up there, memories or sensations or energies in the body that feel young, we could have a supportive, nurturing relationship with our adult self to ourself at younger ages when we didn't have any way to protect ourselves. We had very little agency. That's another relationship we can have through time. So even if we felt very unattended and unloved or hurt as a child, we can change that relationship now. And we know that with relationships and connection, it takes time. We need to build new neural networks for connection. So we need many, many experiences of knowing our body, of being attentive to our body, of being in our body, however we might word that. And for our adult self to be a safe and support for our younger self. So that means working with the inner critic, means all of those things, being kind, cultivating compassion for ourselves. So let's come back into appreciating wherever you are right now in this moment with that. And let your body soften, let your breath be easier, smoother, more continuous. Soften your belly. And now if we were to extend this into our relationship with the earth, we could notice what comes up around that. If you were to bring to mind several memories of when you did feel close to the earth and connected with the earth, it might be your own garden, might be a beach or a forest or a trip that you were on to the redwood forest in California or whatever it might be. Let yourself remember in your mind as images, if that's how it comes in, and also in your body. Let yourself really kind of sink into that. What did that feel like? And one of the attributes is that there wasn't any fear, or maybe it was minimal fear. You're not worried about all of the things that could go on in terms of danger. But if you just let yourself fully relax into that, you can feel yourself safe there. Then our whole body relaxes, our breath gets smoother, and there's a relationship of trust. And that might be in the garden in your backyard, or if you live in an apartment, it might be plants that you have, or maybe it's remembering times when you go out into the country. So some people have a lot of access to nature and other people are more separated physically. But what's your emotional relationship with nature as you just kind of contemplate this for a moment? And specifically, places in nature where you feel safe. A few years ago, I was at a old growth forest in Nova Scotia, and the person who takes care of that land did a little exercise with us. And one of the questions or one of the reflections he had us look at was, I belong here. I belong on the earth. I belong in this particular forest, on this piece of land that my feet are on. I belong here. So one of the things with inquiries is that we're not looking for a certain answer. When we inquire, we're looking to see what's here. So when there was those words about, I feel safe in nature, or even if we were to look at, I trust nature, there might be a lot of fear scenarios that come up. Well, I don't actually feel safe in nature. I could be hurt. There's wild animals in nature, or there might be a tsunami, or there could be all kinds of thoughts about, no, that's not true. I don't feel that way. And maybe your response to I belong here on this earth was a sense of grief, or no, that's not true. I don't feel like that. I feel disconnected from the earth. Or it might have been a sense of really feeling grounded and connected with the earth. So it's important not to prescribe how we're going to experience an inquiry, just to let it in and then notice, what does this feel like in my body? Whatever is coming up. Did I start holding my breath? Did my shoulders tense up? And then let yourself soften again. Be aware of your whole entire body, head to toes. Be aware of your breath. Notice your feet on the ground, which could be a floor and then the ground further down. Just notice that our bodies are supported by the earth. They're kept here by gravity. We've never had the experience of losing gravity and just floating off into air. So we have some confidence and trust that that will be the case. And sometimes when we think about trusting nature, it's interesting to see, what do we trust it to do? Do we trust it to never hurt us, or that we'll never be harmed by something that happens in nature, like a lightning strike or a flood or a fire? So there can be some very specific conditions on our trust. And we could also have a stepped back perception of, I trust that nature is not trying to hurt me. It's not malevolent. And continue to notice what thoughts come into your mind. If something is a bit intense, you could always do some tapping on your forehead. Just take your attention in to the sound and sensation of your fingers on your forehead. You could hold your hand, you could open your eyes, use any of the emergency practices that we do. I feel connected with the living earth. And that might be like a reverse inquiry where we say something like that that's not entirely true so that we can see what our unconscious resistance is. Or it might be more of an aspiration or an intention. How could I cultivate my relationship with the living earth to increase my connection? And some of this is location. We could bring ourselves to locations where we can more easily feel connected. A lot of it is mindfulness. And a lot of it is what's going on in our nervous system. Are we available? So with the trauma and the disconnection that happens with trauma, that disconnection extends to the earth. So as we're healing our own emotional, physical, social trauma, can we extend that to healing our relationship with the living earth? And notice as thoughts come and go, notice as sensations come and go. If we have a fear or a dread or guilt around what's happened with our disconnection with ourselves and with the earth, that can create a lot of disconnection in this moment as well. So letting everything else just move to the side for a minute. We don't have to figure things out, or we don't have to make a plan. Check in with your willingness to increase your connection. I belong on this earth. And then as we're finishing the practice, you could notice what came up. If there's any intentions that you'd like to make, just continue to notice what's your experience right now.